Before the court dates and the attic boxes, there was a dinner where my grandson said 4 words that cut clean through me. The rest is quieter, but worse, a plan that borrowed my son's voice. Subscribe and like if you want the truth told slow and straight. I basted the turkey all day. My grandson said, "You're not family." The knife flashed like a wet branch under a streetlight, and the room went thicker than gravy. I stood at the sink with my palm a little sticky from oil, watched steam climb in a thin thread. Cinnamon from the pie sweetened the air, but my mouth felt empty, like I'd swallowed paper. Ethan didn't look up. He just said it and bowed to his phone, and I thought how my oak table rubbed with lemon oil every Saturday had turned into some counter at a bank. "Dad, don't start," Matt said. Gentle, but flat, as if from a note card I hadn't seen. He nudged his plate a hair, squared it the way a carpenter forgets his ruler at home. On his wrist lay Elaine's hand, light as a napkin. She didn't speak. She smiled with half her mouth, the kind of smile that flips the sign from open to closed. I set the carving knife into the wooden block. Metal clicked against wood. From the living room came cartoon laughter, kids giggling at a talking dog in a hat, the volume low, the joy real. Heat from the oven pressed my face, dry, with the taste of crisp skin. We had waited on this day. I'd made broth the night before, thought maybe we'd have, like it was. But like it was is a long way back, and sometimes I ask myself if I dreamed it. My hand found the edge of the table, smooth where I'd shaved a burr. Right there was the old scratch. The first knife a child ever dragged across the grain. Katie had laughed back then, and I told her, "Don't be afraid. Wood forgives. Wood forgives. People, not always." I basted all morning. I said to the room or the table, "I don't know." Chewing slowed. Elaine's fork kissed the plate, a mosquito sound in summer. I sat down. The chair groaned in a voice I knew. On the plate, the turkey looked perfect. The knife obeyed. Outside, the boys hit the hoop at the park. The ring on the backboard sounded in my ribs, steady as a metronome. Matt straightened. He tried on a tone, like a shirt not his size. "It's best for everyone. Let's not make a scene, okay?" I nodded. It's easier to nod than to fight, not for lack of words, because I know what yelling does. It erases. Paper doesn't. I don't know much about settings or screens. I don't need to. I've got receipts, notebooks, dates in ink. I know what a house is worth when your hands have touched every step. I folded my napkin square same way I've done all my life, and thought how home is not walls but the rings mugs leave on wood. Elaine slid Matt the green beans. Everything pretty as a catalog. Holiday napkins, stubby candles, warm light. Her nail tapped the glass, a soft signal that we'd all pretend this was normal. She nudged his elbow, and he picked up a word that wasn't his. "Dad," he said, "we'll talk later, all right? Not now." Later, in our house, meant never. I cut the white meat textbook, clean, across the grain, even slices. Sage rode the plate like a quiet blanket. I drank water. It was warm, and it stayed. In the hall, the photo frames matched black, all in a row. One had a gap at the corner. They'd swapped the picture, cleaned out the man who used to stand there. I saw it yesterday when I dusted. I didn't say a thing. Moved the frame half an inch so the lamp wouldn't glare. "You're not family," Ethan said again, softer, as if testing if it still hurt. I heard Emily catch her breath, and Katie looked down at her fork. I almost said family is where they know your scars and still bring you soup. I didn't. The turkey tasted right salt, landed where it should. Funny how a right taste can't fix a wrong night. The fridge door opened, closed. Excuses buzzed over the table. "In your best interest." No scenes. Not now. I stacked bones in the old stoneware bowl, the one that used to hold the keys to my shop. The brass nameplate from those years sits crooked on the shelf. Sometimes I set it straight, and my fingers come up gray. That gray pleases me. Dust tells the truth better than shine. When chairs scraped back, it sounded like rain on a roof. I walked the knife to the sink, let the hot water run. Steam hit my face. My shoulders felt cold. I told myself tomorrow, would be easier. No holiday. Ordinary as a balm. I dried the blade, slid it home. The house breathed. Or maybe I needed it to. At the door, Matt turned. For half a beat I saw him without her hand on him. His mouth opened, then shut. For once he didn't look at her first. He meant to speak. Then Elaine touched his shoulder soft, like killing the engine. He nodded not to me and left. The porch smelled like damp leaves and gas. I stood in the kitchen a minute more. The only noise was the clock. I poured the last of the coffee from the small pot. Bitter, and it stayed. I set the mug down without thinking. The wet ring printed itself on the oak. I rubbed it with my thumb. It didn't fade. From the drawer I pulled the gray folder with the cracked corner. Slipped in the letter Matt left last week. Dad, let's meet. But not so often. It's safer. Another note. With smooth phrases. Paper speaks calmer than we do. I closed the folder. The house lay quiet and warm. My hand reached for the switch. I didn't flip it. Outside, the boys kept hitting the rim. Same spot, same sound. Again and again, until metal finally gives. I found my name on the rug. The words inside weren't mine. The letter lay neat at the edge of the mat, like someone had stepped there and left part of themselves behind. The name on the front was mine. But the handwriting was too careful. Too new. I slid it open with the same knife I once used to sharpen pencils when the kids were in grade school. Dad, it began. Let's slow down the visits. It's safer this way. In your best interest. The paper smelled faintly of ink and rain our mailbox leaks when the wind comes from the east. I read it twice, not because I didn't understand, but because I wanted to find my son's voice in it. I didn't. What I found was language polished smooth as stone. By noon, the phone clicked alive. His voice was there, tinny, straight. Pressed flat by weight. Dad, don't be upset. It's better this way. For everyone. We'll talk later. He paused halfway. Like he'd lost his place on a sheet of paper. Then silence. I sat in the kitchen, elbows on the oak, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. The air smelled of reheated coffee, sour and thin. Outside, a delivery truck hissed to a stop, brakes crying on wet pavement. Life kept moving. I stayed still. I put the letter in the gray folder. Its corner was cracked, sharp enough to scratch a finger if you held it wrong. Beside it went last week's note, the one about cutting back our time together. Safer, both said. That word had the same chill no matter how many times I read it. By evening, the house was hushed. The porch light cut a narrow square across the floorboards. Down the block, kids kicked a ball, their laughter skipping ahead of them. A dog barked once, then again, chasing nothing but its own shadow. I poured soup from a jar and set it on the stove. The steam fogged my glasses. I wiped them with my shirt. Without them, the room blurred. Shapes, outlines, nothing sharp. Maybe that was closer to the truth faces I knew, softened into smears, voices bent into words that didn't fit. When the soup boiled over, I shut off the burner, wiped the ring of broth with a rag. The rag smelled of lemon oil, from polishing the table. My thumb caught the old scratch across the grain. That mark has outlived marriages, businesses, promises. A knife made it. My hand kept it. I thought about calling Matt back. But I pictured Elaine standing close by, listening, ready to press a palm on his arm. And I knew what words would come, tidy words. Words not his. I left the phone on the counter, screen dark. Instead, I opened the folder again, laid the letters flat, one beside the other. I pressed my palm down, as if weighing them. Paper doesn't sweat. Paper doesn't blink. It sits and waits. The soup cooled. I didn't eat. She left on a Tuesday, told the kids I was gone. The brass plate from my shop still leans crooked on the shelf, gray dust thick on the letters, Whitmore Custom Woodworks. I carried it home the week Linda walked out. She told the neighbors I was unstable, told the kids I was better forgotten. By Friday, she was in another man's kitchen. and I was on a cot in the back of mine. I didn't fight it out loud. I built cabinets, rails, chairs, maple, oak, ash. The sawdust settled on my shirt, the oil seeped into my skin, and those smells outlasted every promise she broke. Matt was 10. He swallowed her story whole the way a boy does when the mother puts the spoon to his mouth. Katie was younger. She slid notes into her backpack, folded squares that said, "I love you, Daddy," or little houses with doors too big. I saved them in a tin box, rust on the edges now. Sometimes she found ways to call, quick and quiet, when no one else was listening, just enough to keep me standing. Years later, when the business finally earned real money, I sold it. Papers signed, checks cleared, and I drove home with that brass plate rattling in the trunk. I thought maybe a name carved in metal would mean something. It didn't. It just tilts on a shelf now, waiting for me to straighten it. Tonight I tried polishing it with the same rag I used on the table. For a second, it caught the light, sharp as the windows in my old shop when the sun cut through and the sawdust danced. Then the shine dulled. Dust returns quick. I set the plate on the table beside me. The oak was smooth, but the old scratch Katie left with a butter knife still ran across the grain. That mark has lived longer than my marriage, longer than the shop, a child's slip, a father's choice to forgive. I left it there on purpose. Outside, a couple walked their dog. Their laughter trailed down the street. The air carried the smell of pizza from a box, hot cheese and grease. I stood at the window, listening to their voices fade, and thought of Linda's "for the kids' stability" she used to say. The same words I read in Matt's letters now. Stability. Safety. Words that sand a man down until he's smooth and silent. I poured the soup cold into the sink, watched it swirl and vanish. Onion rose up sharp, then disappeared. The plate went back on the shelf, crooked again. Maybe crooked is the only honest way for it to stand. And Katie, her calls, her notes, her drawings, they're the reason I know I was never gone. She stirred her coffee 3 times before she spoke. That's how I knew it was bad. Katie picked a corner booth at the diner on Route 12, the one that still smells like fryer oil no matter how wide they prop the doors. The plastic seat squeaked when she shifted, and the napkin dispenser rattled under her elbow. Steam lifted off her mug, curling into the low light. She kept her eyes on the swirl, spoon clinking against the rim, once, twice, 3 times. Then she finally looked up. "I told him," she said. The jukebox in the corner coughed out an old country song, scratchy as gravel. Outside, a pickup coughed too, then faded down the highway. Katie's hands wrapped tight around her cup, knuckles pale. "I didn't mean to, Dad. It slipped out. That you were thinking about putting things in my name." He asked why I still call you. I couldn't lie. The booth vinyl stuck to the back of my hand where I leaned. The smell of onions hit from the kitchen, sharp enough to sting my eyes. She shook her head. He froze. He didn't yell. Just stored it. Then he said I shouldn't confuse things, that it was all about stability. She swallowed. The same word Mom used, the same word in those letters. I thought of the folder at home, the letters laid flat, smooth words pressed like veneer. Katie's slip was just the grain showing through. Her voice dropped lower. "I think Elaine caught it. She didn't say a thing, but I felt her eyes on me, Dad. Like she knew more than I said." The waitress slid by with a tray of burgers. The smell of char filled the air, heavy and warm. 2 teenagers at the counter leaned close over a milkshake, 2 straws in 1 glass. Their laughter was soft and careless, the kind you can't fake. I reached for Katie's spoon and laid it flat on the napkin. My hand shook more than I wanted. "Don't carry the blame," I said. "Wood splits where the pressure's already there. You just showed the grain." Her eyes watered, not from the onions. She nodded, small, like a girl again, like the one who once drew me lopsided houses. We sat in silence. My coffee cooled fast, thin and bitter. Hers, she still cradled, though she didn't drink. When we left, the bell over the door rang high and lonely. The parking lot smelled of gasoline and wet pavement. Katie hugged me quick, like someone afraid of being seen. "Be careful," she whispered. I watched her drive off, taillights fading red down the dark road. My hand found the brass plate on the seat beside me. Crooked still. Heavy still. And the words from her mouth already echoing in the letters waiting at home. He never raised his voice. He just set his phone down like a hammer. I know the sound of my son's silence. That night, after Katie told me what slipped, I sat at the kitchen table with the folder open, listening to the house breathe. The phone on the counter buzzed once, twice, then quiet. Later she told me, he went straight to Elaine. He didn't storm, didn't accuse. Just laid the phone flat on the table, screen still glowing, her name beside the message. She picked it up, read it, and didn't look at him for a long while. The word trust was in there, Katie's clumsy way of saying what I had thought of, what I had never promised. Elaine closed the phone, folded her napkin slow, and smiled. That was enough. I picture it clearer than I should, the neat little kitchen, her lemon candles burning down to the glass, Matt's hands still damp from washing dishes. She didn't raise her tone. She wouldn't need to. A single look, the kind that says, "We'll take care of this," and my son fell in line. Next morning I found a fresh envelope on the mat. The handwriting was neat, too neat, as if someone had practiced each curve until it passed inspection. My name at the top, his at the bottom. The words in between, "In everyone's best interest. For stability." I froze at that word. Stability. The same word Linda used the night she left, when she told the kids I was gone. The air smelled of wet leaves when I bent to pick it up. Across the street, a boy shot hoops in his driveway. The ball thudding steady as a heartbeat. Then a sharp clang when he hit the rim metal ringing out like a bell in my chest. I sat at the oak table, smoothed the letter flat with my palm. My hand shook, the paper crinkling under my thumb. Warm from my skin. But the words stayed cold. Later Katie called again. Her voice was thin. "Dad, I think it started. He won't say much. Just keeps repeating it's for safety, that it's the right thing." I wanted to tell her not to worry. But my eyes were on the folder, the stack thickening, the corner bent sharp. That night I polished the table until the rags smelled of lemons. The scratch from Katie's butter knife ran under my thumb, rough against the grain. A child's slip. A mark that never faded. The letters, though they were smooth, too smooth. They came with clipboards, not casseroles. 2 women at my door, both in pale jackets, one carrying a stethoscope like a necklace she didn't want to wear. The taller smiled wide. Too wide. The kind of smile that pretends it belongs. She said my name slow, then added, "We're here just for a quick check. Your son thought it would be best for your safety. In your best interest." The words landed heavier than the knock, your son thought. Best interest. I stepped back. The hallway smelled of wood polish and last night's coffee grounds. My slippers stuck to the rug where I'd spilled broth and half cleaned it. They walked in without waiting. One opened her pen. I sat in my chair by the window, the one with the cushion that sinks too low. She asked questions from the form. Do I forget meals? Do I get lost? Do I feel safe in my home? Her voice was sweet as syrup poured too long. I answered plain. Bread in the cupboard, soup on the stove. The street outside as familiar as my own hands. The shorter one scribbled anyway. Their pens made more noise than their shoes. Through the glass I saw Elaine on the curb. She wasn't part of the visit, at least not on paper. Just standing by her car, phone in her hand. Eyes down. Not watching, but her shadow stretched long on the pavement, almost reaching my steps. The taller folded her sheet. This is only preliminary. We'll send the results to your family. My chest tightened at that word. Family. I held my breath a second too long, then let it out slow. My hand gripped the arm of the chair till the wood pressed a groove into my palm. When they left, their perfume lingered sharp, mixing with lemon oil from the table. I opened the window, let in the cold. A boy pedaled past on his bike, red scarf flapping, wheels ticking steady. He rang his bell bright, careless. The sound cut sharp in the quiet house. Too loud, too free. I looked at the folder on the table. 4 letters now, corners bent like blades. The scratch across the oak felt rough under my thumb. Real. Honest. Not smooth like their papers. I shut the window. The house breathed shallow. The envelope was thicker this time. Not a letter, an application. It came in the afternoon mail, folded neat, stamped official. My name in the corner. My son's handwriting at the bottom. The same neat strokes, too neat. As if written under someone's hand. I slid it open with my pocket knife. But the blade slipped too deep, nicking the first page. My hand shook longer than it should have. The words inside were colder than the paper. Application for residential care. Every line circled back to the same refrain. Safer, stable, supervised. The word safety 3 times, stability twice. Pasted in like nails in a board someone wanted to stay shut. Across the street, kids chalked hopscotch on the sidewalk, bright squares in pink and blue. Their laughter carried over, each jump a thud against pavement. I glanced back at the form. Supervised environment for ongoing safety. Stable housing for best interest. Smooth words, over and over, like someone sanding the same edge until it lost all shape. I turned to the last page, signed by Matthew Whitmore. The letters even, balanced, without his usual rush. He never wrote that straight in his life. The paper smelled faintly of lemon like the candles Elaine burns in her kitchen. Rain started up outside. Drops struck the chalk drawings, the pink and blue lines bleeding crooked across the sidewalk. The children scattered, squealing. Shoes slapping wet pavement. Their joy trailed off, leaving only the sound of water on stone. I stacked the pages and slid them into the gray folder. The bent corner jabbed my hand sharp like a warning. I sat at the table long after the room darkened. The folder lay thick and silent. My thumb found the scratch across the oak rough. Honest. The papers waited. Smooth and quiet. As if they could outlast me. They called him a friend of the family. I'd never seen his face before. He came in a gray suit, hair trimmed close, carrying a folder that matched his tie. Matt walked beside him, shoulders hunched, nodding too much. Elaine trailed half a step behind, her hand brushing his sleeve like reins. We sat at the oak table. The man set down his folder and spread it open slow, as if we were all supposed to lean forward. Just some options, he said. His voice had the weight of polished wood, steady, too smooth. Matt cleared his throat, spoke like he was reading. Dad, this could protect you. For stability. In your best interest. The words clinked like coins. Not his, not spoken, just recited. Elaine didn't speak. She touched the rim of her glass, traced a circle, then slid the folder an inch closer to me. Her fingers lingered a second longer than needed, as if they could press the wood itself. The man pointed at lines on the page, trusts, transfers, powers. I heard them like water running behind a wall. The faucet's on, but you can't see where. I looked down at the folder. Heavy paper, glossy tabs, the kind of print that smells faintly of ink and chemicals. My house smelled of coffee grounds and lemon oil, honest smells, but their pages carried something colder. For a second my hand twitched toward the pen. The weight of it felt too easy, too natural in my fingers. I thought of Linda years ago, her voice steady, introducing another friend of the family who only wanted what was best. She'd said stability then too, same smile, same words. I glanced at Matt. His lips moved, but his eyes flicked sideways, waiting. She gave the smallest nod, and he went on. His voice was flat, but his shoulders tightened like a boy in school reciting for the teacher. Through the window, a neighbor raked leaves into a bright pile. His kids leapt in, scattering gold and red into the air. Their shouts rose high, brighter than the man's steady voice, louder than the scratch of his pen. The smell of damp leaves drifted in when a breeze caught the window frame, sharp and earthy, nothing like the polished lemon on the rag in my hand. The lawyer droned on. Transfer of assets, provision for care, continuity of responsibility. The words slid past me like rainwater down siding. Not one stuck. I set the pen down. It rolled to a stop by the scratch Katie carved years ago. My thumb pressed that line hard until it hurt. The table was scarred, but honest. The papers were smooth. Too smooth. Elaine leaned back, sipping water, eyes calm. Her smile never touched her cheeks. Her nail clicked once against the glass, small, deliberate. A signal I wasn't supposed to catch. The man closed the folder with a quiet thud. The sound carried heavier than it should have, like a door shutting down a hall. No one moved. The kids outside kept laughing, throwing leaves into the air until they stuck to their jackets. I sat at the table, the oak warm under my hand, the scratch under my thumb. I thought, wood forgives, paper doesn't. The pen waited by my wrist. I didn't touch it again. The papers stayed between us, smooth and silent, waiting. They didn't knock like neighbors, they knocked like they had a key. 2 men this time, plain coats, badges on lanyards. Their smiles were trained, quick, and already fading by the time I opened the door. One said my name. The other said, just routine. The word landed heavy. Routine for them, not for me. They stepped inside, shoes still wet from the street, leaving marks on the rug I'd vacuumed that morning. The taller asked about medication, about food in the fridge, about who checked in on me. His tone was polite, but his pen moved like it was late for something. I answered straight, pills in the bathroom cabinet, soup on the stove, Katie calls when she can. I didn't mention the folder thickening on the table behind me. The shorter man flipped through papers, nodded once. Your son has been proactive, he said. Wants to ensure you're stable. That everything is in your best interest. The words were too clean. Stable, best interest. Same ones in the letters, same ones Linda had used years ago. Different mouths, same script. I felt my chest tighten, but I forced a breath, slow. The air smelled of their cologne, spicy, strong, mixing with coffee grounds and the faint trace of lemon oil. Too many scents for one small room. Through the window I saw Elaine at the curb again, same car, same phone in her hand. She leaned against the door, casual, as if she were waiting for groceries. She didn't look at the house, but her reflection in the glass fixed straight on me, as if her eyes had already been there. The taller one asked if I ever got lost, if I felt unsafe in my own home. I thought of Linda's voice years ago, telling the kids I was gone. Unsafe. Unstable. The words lived longer than the truth. I answered plain, this is my house. I built the shelves, laid the floor, fixed the stairs with my own hands. I don't get lost here. He scribbled anyway. His pen scratched like a mouse in the wall, fast, steady, chewing at something I couldn't see. Outside, a ball bounced hard into a puddle. Water splashed high. Kids shrieked with laughter. The sound rang bright against the quiet in the room, loud enough to make the pen falter for a beat. The men closed their folders, stood, thanked me. Their smiles returned just long enough to fill the doorway. Then they were gone. Perfume and pen scratches, lingering like smoke. I turned the bolt on the door. My hand trembled on the lock. The key slipped once before it clicked. I kept my palm there longer than needed, as if holding it shut with skin alone. The folder on the table waited. 6 papers now, sharp corners, stacked like blades. My thumb found Katie's scratch across the oak, rough, stubborn. I pressed it until my skin burned. Outside, Elaine finally lifted her eyes from her phone. She didn't smile. She just looked. Steady. Through the drizzle on the glass. Then she drove away. The house breathed, shallow and uneven. The envelope didn't ask this time. It told. It came in the morning, slid under the door before I even boiled water for coffee. Thicker paper, embossed seal. The kind of stock you pay extra for, so the weight does the talking. I slid it open with the same pocket knife, careful this time. My hand still remembered slipping too deep last week. The words waited in black print. Temporary transfer of financial authority. No if, no, consider, just effective immediately. My name at the top, Matthews at the bottom. His letters lined up neat again, straighter than he ever wrote in school. The signature didn't carry his hand, it carried her steadiness. The page smelled faintly of perfume lemon. Sharp, almost chemical. Not ink. Not paper. Like a candle blown out too close to your face. Every line circled back to the same chant. Stability. Safety. Continuity of care. Best interest. The words rotated like gears, repeating until they stripped themselves smooth. I laid it on the oak table beside the others. The folder bulged now, gray corner bent sharp as a blade. 7 papers stacked, all saying the same thing in longer ways. The kettle hissed. I poured water over grounds, the smell rising bitter and dark. Steam clouded my glasses, the page blurred. For a second I thought maybe I'd misread it. Maybe the words weren't final. But when I wiped the lenses clear, they still said the same. Through the window, the neighbor's dog barked at empty air, teeth flashing at nothing. A jogger passed, earbuds in, raising a hand to greet someone else, not me. I stood at the glass and felt invisible in my own house. I pressed my thumb into the scratch across the oak. Rough, stubborn. My hand shook, not from age, but from holding still too long. I folded the paper once, then again, slid it into the folder, closed it. The corner bit my palm when I pressed it shut. This time I didn't leave it on the table. I carried it to the bedroom, crouched low, pried at the loose board in the closet. The wood groaned, stiff, as if it didn't want to open. When I shoved the folder under, the board caught, wouldn't sit flush. I pressed with both hands until it thudded down, breath shaking out of me with the sound. I stood there, palm flat on the floorboard, waiting for it to rise back up. It didn't. If paper doesn't forgive, wood remembers. The house was still, but something in me moved. They told me the kids were busy, but kids are never too busy to see their grandfather. The call came toward evening. Matt's voice, flat, careful. Soccer practice ran late. Maybe next weekend. I knew the season was over. I'd walked past Lincoln Park last week, fields empty, lines faded, nets rolled and tied. His words clinked against my ear like loose change sound without weight. On the table I'd set out their things. A deck of cards for Go Fish, the jar of jelly beans they always fought over, 3 chipped mugs with cocoa already mixed. The steam had long gone cold by the time the phone rang. My hand shook as I held the receiver, the plastic warm against my cheek. My thumb pressed hard into the groove on its side. I asked about homework, about bedtime, about the smallest things a grandfather clings to. His answers came slow, delayed, as if he were reading. Then he said, "It's easier for their stability, Dad. It's safer this way." Those weren't his words, they were hers. And before her, they were Linda's same words she used when she told the kids I was gone, that they'd be more stable without me. I didn't argue. I just listened until the line clicked dead. The silence in my hand was thicker than his voice. Outside, children laughed 2 houses down. Chalk squares still bright on the sidewalk, their shouts chasing each other in the cool air. My house held nothing but the hum of the refrigerator. I took a sip of cocoa from one of the mugs. Cold, too sweet. It coated my tongue in sugar, stuck in my throat. I poured the rest down the sink, watched it swirl away. The evening light stretched across the floor, orange and low. Dust floated in the beam. I thought of my grandkids' hair catching sunlight, of their sock feet sliding down this hallway, of their small hands tugging at my arm for one more story. Now there was only a phone call. A lie dressed up as stability. I sat until the dark filled the room. No voices, no knocks, no footsteps. Just the scrape of my chair against the oak when I finally stood. The scratch under my thumb outlasted the call, outlasted the cocoa, outlasted the lie. They gave me a guardian I never asked for. The letter came folded twice, tucked in a plain white envelope. No seal this time. Just a printed return address I didn't know. I slid it open slow, sat at the oak table where the cocoa mug still waited from the night before. Notice of assigned oversight. The words were clean, heavy with ink. A name I didn't recognize, someone appointed to monitor and assist with weekly visits. The paper listed duties: ensure safety, review finances, assess living conditions. No space for me to say yes or no. At the bottom, initiated at the request of family. The word family tilted on the page, crooked in my eyes. I heard Linda's voice from years ago, the night she told the kids I was gone. He isn't safe. They need stability. Same words then, same words now, only printed neater. The page smelled faintly of glue and toner, but under it, sharp and citrus, lemon too strong, too clean, like it didn't belong to paper at all. The same ghost that clung to the last envelope. Through the window, a couple pushed a stroller down the block. Their child laughed at nothing, arms reaching up as if to grab the sky. His voice floated easy. Free. I pressed my hand harder to the page, but my fingers shook. The folder bulged now, too thick to close smooth. The bent corner jabbed my palm, slicing a thin line. Blood welled. I stuck my finger in my mouth. Tasted iron. Bitter. I held it there too long, longer than I needed, like a child trying to stop a hurt he can't name. The hum of the fridge filled the kitchen. The loose board in the closet rattled faintly, as if it knew what weight waited under it. The wood remembered. I folded my hands on the table, the cut stinging against my skin. Because if they were assigning me someone, it meant the clock had started. They sent a stranger to measure my life with a clipboard. He knocked once, light, then let himself in when I opened slow. Mid-40s, neat shirt, tired eyes. He introduced himself, name clipped short. Already forgotten. He said he was here to check in. His shoes squeaked on the floorboards as he walked room to room, jotting notes. He asked about food, about heat, about bills. His tone was gentle, but his eyes went straight to the corners where dust gathered, to the clock on the wall that ticked 2 minutes slow. I offered coffee. He declined, said he didn't drink at afternoon. He smiled, polite, already writing something on his sheet. We sat at the oak table. His clipboard lay flat across the scratch Katie carved years ago. My thumb brushed it, but he didn't notice. He asked if I ever forgot to lock doors, if I misplaced things, if I felt safe at night. Then he added, "This is all part of ensuring continuity of care, ongoing stability, and your best interest." The same words again, too smooth, too familiar. I answered plain. Bread in the cupboard, locks on the doors, this house built with my own hands. He wrote anyway. His pen scratched fast, steady, like a mouse chewing inside the walls. My hand tightened on the table's edge until the knuckles went white. He didn't look up. Through the window I saw Elaine's car parked across the street. The engine idled soft, a low hum that carried through the glass, blending with the scratch of his pen. She didn't get out. Just sat, phone in hand, waiting. Outside, a neighbor's kids tossed a football back and forth. One missed through, and the ball smacked against my siding with a dull thud. Their laughter rang high, sharp, spilling into my house for a second before fading. The man closed his clipboard, thanked me for my time, said he'd be back next week. His handshake was soft, quick, already gone. When the door shut, his cologne lingered, mixing with lemon oil from the rag I'd used on the table. 2 scents that didn't belong together. I pressed my palm flat against the oak, felt the rough line under my skin. The house breathed shallow. The clock on the wall ticked 2 minutes behind. The bank card didn't decline. It froze. I stood at the counter of the corner store, bread and milk in my basket, coins already in my palm out of habit. The clerk swiped my card, frowned at the screen, tried again. The little machine beeped sharp, final. He looked at me with that half-smile people wear when they don't want to embarrass you. "Looks like it's restricted, sir." Restricted. Not declined. Not empty. Just locked. I put the bread back on the shelf, left the milk sweating on the counter. The clerk didn't meet my eyes as he set it aside. I walked out with my coins still warm in my hand. They rattled against each other, my fingers trembling so hard they almost spilled onto the pavement. The air outside was colder than I expected, sharp enough to sting my throat. I stood a long moment under the buzzing store sign, coins shaking in my fist. before walking home. In the mailbox, another envelope. Thick paper, return address printed neat. Notice of account oversight. The words were blunt. All withdrawals above a small allowance would now require family approval. Paragraphs of smooth language followed, each one circling back to the same chant. For your protection, to ensure ongoing stability in your best interest. The same chorus, always the same. I sat at the oak table, letter spread under my palm. My hand trembled, the page rattling against the wood. My thumb searched for the scratch Katie carved. Found it. Pressed hard. Through the window, I saw a boy pedaling past on his bike, a bag of groceries swinging from the handlebars, bright boxes shifting with each turn. He laughed at nothing, hair blown back by the wind. As he passed my window, his eyes flicked in my direction, but he didn't see me. Just glass. Just a house. He was gone in a flash of color and noise. I thought of my grandson sitting on my shoulders once, hands clutching my hair, yelling faster, faster, down the same street. That sound had filled the air once. Now it was only memory. I folded the letter, slid it into the folder. The folder groaned against the weight. Corners bent sharp as blades. From the street came a muffled thump, car door shutting. Then the sharper click of heels on pavement, steady, unhurried. They passed my window, but I didn't lift the curtain. The sound alone was enough. The house breathed shallow. My pockets were full of coins, clinking soft, but none of them mattered. She didn't call on the house phone. She called my old cell, the one I keep in a drawer. The ring startled me. That phone hadn't lit up in months. Its buzz sounded weak, like a fly against glass. I dug it out from under old receipts and a cracked pair of glasses. The screen flickered once before her name appeared, Katie. I answered quick, before the battery could die. Dad, she whispered, don't say much. I can't stay long. They can't know I called. Her words came fast, as if rehearsed, breath short like she was speaking in a closet. They're not his letters, Dad. They're hers. I saw them drafts on Elaine's laptop, all labeled neat. Same phrases, over and over. Stability, best interest, safety. The same ones you've been getting. I sat at the oak table, the gray folder heavy by my hand. My thumb pressed into Katie's old scratch, holding tight, as if her voice carved it deeper with every word. She's got Mom behind her, Katie said. I didn't want to believe it, but I heard them together. Mom told her everything about your accounts, about the money you planned for me. She said, he won't fight. He never did. The room went still. The fridge hummed. The slow clock ticked. The loose board in the closet rattled faint. But inside my head I heard Linda's voice, clear as the night she left, telling the kids, it's safer this way. He's not stable. Now the same judgment traveled decades, whispered by my daughter about another woman's mouth. Outside, the world was wide awake. Neighbors unloading groceries, car doors thudding shut, the fizz pop of a soda can cracking open, children shrieking as they chased each other down the block. Their noise spilled through my window, bright and careless, drowning out half of Katie's words. Dad, she said softer, as if leaning closer to the line. Don't trust the papers. Don't sign anything. Promise me. The phone in my hand vibrated once more. Then the battery icon blinked red. Her voice broke in static. I'll help. I don't know how yet. But I'll... The line went dead. I sat holding the phone, the plastic warm against my palm, my fingers trembling so hard I almost dropped it. For a moment I pressed it to my cheek, as if it could still carry her hand through. The folder waited. The scratch under my thumb burned. And for the first time in weeks, the house didn't feel completely empty. They called it a meeting. It felt like a trap. The letter came plain. No seal, no weight. Just a date, an address, and a line at the bottom. For assessment purposes, only. I took the bus downtown. Haven't ridden in years. The seats smelled of vinyl and rain, the windows streaked with dirt. Young people tapped at phones, earbuds in, the world sealed tight around them. I sat with my folder tucked under my coat, pressed flat against my chest. The office was glass and steel, too bright, the air sharp with disinfectant. A woman at the desk smiled without looking up. "Mr. Whitmore. Right this way." The room they gave me was small, table bare, 2 chairs. Matt sat in one, his hands folded too neat, shoulders stiff. Elaine beside him, calm, one hand brushing his sleeve like reins. Papers spread between them. "Dad," Matt said, his voice flat. "This is just formality. Nothing to worry about. For stability." That word again. My chest tightened. Elaine didn't speak. She slid the papers toward me, her nails tapping once on the top page. The sound echoed sharp against the glass walls. The man across from us, some lawyer or officer, I never caught his name. He talked smooth, steady, pointing to lines on the page: guardianship, financial continuity, living arrangements. Then he said it again, slower. "All in your best interest, to ensure continuity of care, ongoing stability." The same chorus, the same machine. I kept my hands on the table. My thumb searched for the scar Katie left years ago. But here it was. Just glass. Smooth. Cold. Nothing to hold. The pen rolled to my side. I brushed it with my fingers, just enough for it to shift. My nails dug into my palm until my skin burned, but I didn't lift it. Matt's eyes flicked up at me, then down again quick. His lips pressed tight, as if he'd bitten back words. Elaine leaned back, calm. She didn't smile when the lawyer spoke. She smiled only when I left the pen, lying there. Through the window I saw people outside carrying coffee, laughing into phones, children tossing a ball that bounced high, hitting the side of the building with a hollow thud. The sound cut across the lawyer's words for a second, louder than him. I stared at the papers, smooth, waiting. The clock on the wall ticked steady, too loud for such a small room. They didn't ask if I wanted to move. They told me where I was going. The letter was waiting on the mat when I got home. Same clean print, same neat fold. I slid it open with the pocket knife and carried it to the oak table, where the folder already bulged at my elbow. Notice of placement review. It didn't sound like a request. It read like a schedule. A date. An address. A facility name. Line after line about ongoing stability, safety, continuity of care. The words marched across the page like soldiers polite, but final. My thumb pressed the paper until the letters blurred. My hand shook. A fresh sting split across my skin where the last page had cut me. A bead of blood slid down, dropped onto the paper, blooming red across the black ink. I folded it once, then again, but the words still shone through the creases. Through the window, the street was alive. Kids raced scooters, wheels clattering against the sidewalk. A dog barked wild at its own shadow. A couple walked hand in hand, their laughter spilling warm into the cool air. One boy shouted, "Faster! Faster!" And my chest clenched. I'd heard the same words years ago from my grandson on my shoulders, his small fists tangled in my hair. Inside, the fridge hummed louder than any voice. I laid the letter beside the others. The folder groaned when I slid it in, corners bent sharp as blades. My palm caught one edge again, but I didn't move my hand away. I let it hurt. Then the drawer buzzed. Not the house phone, the old cell. Its screen flickered weak, battery gasping, but her name lit anyway. Katie. I grabbed it fast, pressing the warm plastic hard to my ear. "Dad," she whispered, voice thin, urgent. "They're moving quick. Elaine's pushing hard, Mom, too. They think you'll fold. Don't." The static cracked around her words, but I held still, breath caught. "I found something," she said faster now. "Not ready yet, but soon. Just hold on. Promise me." Her voice was hushed, like the nights when she was little, calling me from the closet with a flashlight, whispering secrets she couldn't tell anyone else. The line crackled. Battery blinked red. Her last words came broken, fading under static. "I'll help. I'll—" Then silence. I sat with the phone in my palm, plastic trembling in my hand, blood still damp on the page beneath it. Outside, a scooter wheel clattered against the curb. Inside, The house breathed shallow. The papers waited. They wanted me gone. Instead, they lost everything. Katie came in the afternoon, no text, no knock. She just walked straight into the kitchen, her face set, a folder in her hands. Not as thick as mine, but heavier in what it carried. She laid it on the oak table beside my swollen stack, her fingers resting on the old scratch she made years ago. "Dad," she said steady, "I've got proof. Emails, drafts, transfers in Elaine's name. Linda copied on every line. Katie had pulled them quiet, piece by piece, from places Elaine thought were locked. Matt came later, shoulders low, face pale. He sat across from me, eyes darting to Katie's folder, then to mine, then back to me. "Dad," he said, softer than I'd heard in years, "I didn't know it was this. She told me it was for safety, for stability." That word again. It died in his throat this time. Elaine stood in the doorway, arms folded, calm as ever. Her eyes didn't move when Katie slid a printed email across the table, her name typed bold at the top, her words copied line for line into the letters I'd received. Linda's voice hovered there too, signatures and forwards tying them together, past and present bound in ink. The silence stretched. Matt's hands trembled where they rested on the oak. Then, slow, he lifted his head. For the first time in years, he looked me straight in the eyes. "No more," he said. His voice cracked, but it held. He pushed the papers back toward Elaine. Her smile slipped, just for a second, but enough. She left without a word, heels sharp on the floor. The door shut soft behind her, but the trace of her perfume lemon, too sharp, too clean, lingered in the hall like smoke. Katie gathered her folder, neat, calm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Dad's not signing anything," she said. "And if this goes further, these go public." Later that night, the phone rang. Linda. I didn't answer. Katie did. Her voice was calm, firm, final. When she hung up, she only shook her head. "That's done," she said. The weekend came. Matt brought the kids. They ran down my hallway, sock feet sliding on the wood, laughter chasing itself from room to room. The same sound I'd carried in memory for weeks came back real, louder than the hum of the fridge, brighter than the tick of the slow clock. Katie leaned in the doorway, arms folded, smiling tired but real. Matt sat at the table, shoulders finally loose, eyes on me, steady. I stayed in my chair, hand on the oak, thumb pressed to the old scratch. The gray folder was still there, corners bent, papers sharp. But I didn't hide it this time. I left it out, plain on the table, in the light. Outside, children played in the street. Inside, mine were home. The house breathed steady. This was my house, my family. They tried to take both. But in the end, I'm still here. And I didn't leave. If you've listened all the way through, thank you. These stories are never easy to tell.